mode.
Hi there, and welcome to the IAEM Conference Committee's webinar on tips for successful speaker proposals. Thank you to all of you who have joined us today. We're going to try to give you a really quick session on exactly what you need to do and answer some of your questions about how to prepare your presentation. What we'd like for you to do is, as we go through the webinar, if you could please go ahead and type in your questions into the chat box, and we will address them at the end. And what we're hoping for is that as we go through this, we answer all of your questions. But if we don't, we'll definitely do a question and answer session at the end. All right. Nancy?
Yes. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Nancy Harris. I'm the Vice Chair of the Conference Committee. Susma, did you introduce yourself?
Oh my goodness, I did not. Thank you. Susma Sealy, Chairperson of the Conference Committee, and part of this lovely team that we have here with us today. And Julie?
Julie Husk is on the line with us as well. She is our she's our rock. She helps keep everything moving forward for us and make sure that everybody gets all the information that they need for the conference on time and full of good information. So first, we wanted to kick this off with some important information and some important dates that you should definitely write into your calendar, set up those reminders, because these are pretty important. The first and the most important date is February 20th at 5 p.m. Eastern. That is when your session proposal is due. That's a pretty hard deadline. There are no exceptions. All proposals must be into the system by 5 p.m. Eastern on February 20th. So plan things out accordingly, and like I said, add a reminder to your calendar. The reason why we need it by then is because we go through our review process, which we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail as we go along, and we will let you know by May 1st of 2015. That way you can begin to make appropriate plans for traveling out to Clark County to join us in November. If you are accepted, we will be looking for the first version of your visual presentation by August 3rd at 5 p.m., and that'll be Eastern Daylight Time at that point. Again, these are our hard and these are hard deadlines, and we understand that there are things that happen, and you know, if you do run into some issues, disasters happen, and that's the nature of the business. You let us know, and we can work with you. But please do your best to adhere to these deadlines. Things you should know about your breakout session. These sessions are 100% not commercial. You may not promote a product or a service at any point in your session. You cannot have company logos on your slides. There's one exception to that. That'll be your last slide where you can have a logo. But we do not want this or any of our sessions to be commercials for products or services. You're not there to sell your product or service. You're there to provide information. We've got a 1-hour session set aside for folks, and that does include time for questions and answers. So as you're developing your proposal, as you're developing your presentation, make sure that you leave time for questions and answers at the end. It's really important to keep in mind that as when your session's over, another session will be coming in there, so you won't have time to hang out in the room. So make sure you leave time for questions and answers. If you do find that people are coming at you, you can move out into the hallway, but we do need to turn over those rooms to keep the conference moving forward. Susma?
Hang on one second, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm having a little difficulty here with my computer. So the screen you should be seeing in front of you is the one on the theme. Our theme this year is expanding the spectrum of emergency management. And the important thing you have to remember is that your subject, your presentation has to tie into this theme. Can you all hear me?
Yep, you're good, Susma. Keep going.
Okay, sorry about that. I was having some challenges. We're emergency managers, and of course, anytime we're doing something, we always have technical difficulties. I apologize for that, folks. So as I was saying, our theme is expanding the spectrum of emergency management. make sure that your presentation ties back into that. Nancy, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so these are our 3 topic areas. When we look at emergency management, we've been told in the past that the phases, or are they mission areas? Environmental and political influences and new partner practices. When we looked at the theme, we decided to call it expanding the spectrum of emergency management because most people see a spectrum as it's a fixed array of colors or disciplines or perspectives, and we look at it as either, you're in between 2 extreme points. We would like to challenge that notion. We want you all, our colleagues, to consider the spectrum as a scale that can widen in scope and range. And so that's why we've selected these 3 topic areas. Again, tie it back into the theme. If you decide you don't want to use one of these topic areas, you're free to come up with something. We really especially enjoy when our submitters are creative and they connect their work to something they're doing, particularly the ones who are doing things at the local level. But do not forget to tie it back to the theme. Next slide. All right, let's take a look at scoring our application. I cannot stress enough to all of you, your abstract, your objectives, and your takeaways must be very clear. You can see where we've put on there the no typos. Obviously, we're making a point here. Make sure to take a look at your entire application. I want to just take a moment here to just help you understand the difference between the objectives and takeaways in terms of what we're looking for in the application. Very often, when you put something together, folks will just put a submission and they repeat the objectives and the takeaways, and they're just repeating everything that's in the abstract. But I want to be clear, as a presenter, the objectives for the submission, these are the things that you want your audience to learn. The takeaways themselves are the knowledge or the tools you want the attendees to implement. Now, let me give you an example. For example, if you want to write about the VOAD community and how building a COAD, and the VOAD is a voluntary organization active in disaster, and how building a COAD, a community organization active in disaster, is vital to recovery in the community. Maybe some of your objectives are, showing what is the difference between a VOAD, a COAD, and a long-term recovery group. When are these developed? By whom are these developed? The partners. Your takeaways could be techniques that you use for partnering and collaboration. A consensus document that you might have created and you share with them, and you go through with the attendees exactly how you created consensus. And perhaps a checklist that you've utilized in the past that incorporates all the different partners and the different types of communication tools or strategies that you may have used. You notice there's an emphasis on the concrete information, concrete activities and actions that individuals can take after they've attended your session. We want folks to hear about the story. There's something so compelling about our submissions. What is it that you want people to know? And when we are looking at the abstracts and the objectives and the takeaways, we want to make sure, hey, do we know what you're trying to say? Do we understand your story? And most importantly, the question you have to ask yourself when you're doing this is, why should the IAEM audience hear your presentation? What is so compelling about it? And again, this is exactly what we're looking for. Make sure that it's complete. Make sure that, for example, when we're looking at your references, that you don't put a co-speaker in as a reference, so that if you have 2 people who are submitting, the 2 of them should not be references for each other, because that just really doesn't make for a good opportunity for us to know exactly what you are and what you can speak to. And do understand, we will call your references, and we will make sure that you, one, are a good speaker, that you have spoken on this. And, I'll give you an example on demonstrated speaker experience and qualifications. If you read a book on how to do a business continuity plan, for example, reading that book doesn't qualify you to speak to this subject. maybe it qualifies you to speak about, hey, you read a book and you decided you want to learn more about it, and here's how you went about making, doing this process. But that doesn't really qualify you on writing that plan. So understand that when we are asking for your references and your experience and qualifications, we want to know what makes you best and most qualified to present on this subject or this submission that you've given to us. Nancy?
Great, thank you. Just wanted to address, there's a couple of questions that popped up about logos. So someone asked if the subject involves a mobile application developed for use by a utility company and how it expands use in the field for EM. I think we have to see how that works in context. The point is not to sell a product or service. So if you're using the logo as an example of something that is being done, that I don't think that violates the non-commercial, but I think we need to see how it looks in context. Susana, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, if I could just expand on that for a moment, just to help explain that a little bit further. Last year we had the Prepare-a-thon was presented, and there are logos that are associated with the America's Prepare-a-thon. And when we were looking at their presentation, we realized it's important for them to use that logo because that logo could be adapted for each area that uses that program. So in that sense, using the logo was appropriate because it was also a part of the program. What we worry about is when you come in and you have your logo for your company at the bottom of every page, you're really selling a product at that point. So in order to be fair to everyone, that's why we have asked all the logos to be limited to the very last page, which is your contact page. Again, as Nancy said, we will look at it a case-by-case basis. And, this is why there's a conversation. And I'll get into more detail about that in our next few slides.
And I think the same would be true of the background slide for an organization. Again, it has to be a more of a context thing, and we can elaborate on that a little bit more later on. Yes, you can submit more than one application or proposal. Just don't submit the exact same thing multiple times.
Yes.
All right. So when you log into, when you sign into the online application system, you will have a number of screens to fill out. And it's really important that you fill out every single field on these screens. The system will not accept your application unless every field is filled out. And we want every field to be filled out because this is information that we need so that we know who you are, where you work, what you do. So these are important. Not every field might be applicable to you. Title, organization, name, department, division, some of those, department, division, maybe you just work for an organization and there's not a specific department or a division. You can use N/A, but there needs to be something in every single field. And please don't put in N/A just to fill a field that you don't want to fill or feel like you have enough information to fill. Please, we need information in all of these fields. So we've got your basic contact information. We've also got, so continuing on, we've got your phone, your cell phone, your preferred way of being contacted. Is it by email? Is it by phone? How do you want us to get in touch with you? There are also some sections for LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook links. So if you want to include any of those, and keep in mind that's going to be included in our IAEM to go mobile app that we'll have in use during the conference itself. If you want people to contact you through any of those social media platforms, please include your links for those as well. Last on this screen is the main speaker biography. Please note that it is limited to 500 characters. That's characters and not words. So what we want here is not your full resume. We don't want your life story. We want to know a little bit about you that tells us who you are, where you work, what you do, a little bit about your experience that qualifies you to speak on this topic. This biography is going to be used as part of the program so that as folks are looking in the program and trying to decide what sessions they're going to go to, they're going to be looking at this biography to see if you really are somebody that they want to go here because you've got the knowledge and the experience. So that's what that biography section's about. And again, please note, it is limited to 500 characters, okay? Moving on, oh, actually, this is, I think this is where Susama's going to talk. Susama?
Thank you, Nancy. All right, so I see there are a lot of questions in there, and I'm going to try to answer all those as I go through this. So just bear with us, please. So let's take a look at this. This is you're going to put in your proposed title. Be clear with the title. Please don't make it 15 words long. If you want to talk about how you implemented a program on fund relief or however it is, say that. Don't make us guess what your presentation's about. If you have something catchy, use that. People remember short phases, so use that. Let's talk about your abstract. 1,000 characters. My suggestion, and Nancy's as well, is do it in Word and then cut and paste so that you know how many characters you have, so that you catch your typos. I cannot stress enough, when it comes to a 1,000-character abstract, be clear. Get to the point. We want to know the essence of your presentation, and when we do our review, we are going to look at your abstract, your objective, and your takeaways first. We're not going to look at your visual presentation first, because we look at this and we go, all right, does what the presenter or does the submission make sense to us? Do we understand what you're trying to say? Are the objectives and your takeaways, are they clear? Are they the same thing? Because if they're the same thing, then you really haven't followed our guidelines. Do we understand exactly what you're trying to share with us? And do we understand what you want people to walk away with? Again, keep in mind the length, the character limit, not word limit. The intro that we have you put in here, this intro is the specific information related to this, to your qualifications to submit the session. So let's say you're a student and you want to put in a submission about maybe a study that you did as part of your capstone project, or maybe something that you learned as part of working on an exercise within one of the community groups. We absolutely welcome anyone who wants to submit to submit. You don't have to be somebody who's been in the field 100 years. You don't have to be the most experienced person at this. We understand. Everybody has to cut their teeth somewhere. Everybody has to start somewhere. What we are looking for is, if you are going to put in a submission, did you follow our guidelines? Did you fill in all this information? Do we understand what you're trying to say? And then do your references and the intro and the bio, do they speak directly to your qualifications to deliver this particular session? And keep in mind, we might call your references, we might look up your LinkedIn profile. Some of you have Facebook profiles out there that you use for work. I use mine for work as well. On my Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn I use for work. So maybe if you provide those, we might take a look at those to see, does he or she really say, does he or she do what they really say that they're doing? Let's take this for a quick second here. Under the AV, what's really important about this is if you have more than one speaker, you need to list in your AV requirements that you will need 2 mics, let's say, maybe a lavalier and a mic. If you think you're going to be putting in a panel, then you need to put in there you'll have 3 panelists. So we will need a lavalier and 2 mics, perhaps, or a setup that supports having some sort of mic or lavalier for each of the speakers. Let's see, I think, all right, and somebody had asked about the references experience. Are they supposed to be part of the visual presentation or implied in the bio and presentation description? The references need to go into the spot that we have in there. Your bio is a shortened resume, essentially, of the qualifications that pertain directly to this submission. And then it's the same thing with your intro. If you have done something, 10 years ago that has nothing to do with this submission that you're putting in for, please don't include that. You don't have to say. Tell us exactly why you're qualified. And again, if we have questions, we will reach out to you. We will reach out to your references. We do check, particularly if you have a compelling topic.
And somebody asked if this means that in sort of looking at the references and the experience, asked if this means the conference does not accept first-time speakers or those with lesser experience. Absolutely not. We welcome folks who are first-time speakers. We welcome folks with all levels of experience. We just want to know that you have the right experience or qualifications to speak on the topic. Okay, so if you are a first-time speaker, we encourage you to submit. We certainly don't want to limit our pool of people with great ideas and great topics and great enthusiasm. So please, if you are a first-time speaker and you are considering submitting, please definitely go ahead and do that. Average acceptance rate of proposals, I think, Susan, did you want to address the acceptance rate? I think that really depends primarily on the number of submissions we receive and the number of slots we have available.
Yeah, you know, I don't think we've ever, we usually get about 300 proposals, and depending on how many tracks we have, we may have anywhere from 50 to 70 breakouts, and it just depends on our venue and what our program looks like. But here's something I'd like for all of you to realize. The reason we're doing this webinar and the reason we make ourselves available to answer questions is that we want to help you all bring out the best in what you have to share. We learn because we learn from each other. Now, Nancy and I and the others on this committee, we've been doing this for years. So trust us when we say that we really are looking for the best topics out there, and we do want to help you with this. So we make ourselves available to you should you decide you have questions. Maybe after this webinar you want to follow up and say, hey, I really would like to talk about this, but I'm not sure how to develop that. Reach out to one of us. We will have a conversation with you. It's for those of you who are first-time speakers, we encourage you to reach out, particularly because of that. You have to start somewhere, and I think this might be, start by putting this together. Hey, Nancy, can we go to the next slide on the submitting presentation? All right. Let's talk about the actual submission. Aside from the application and all these other things, let's talk about it. First of all, I want everyone to notice that you have to give us a proposed presentation, whatever visual software you'd like, presentation software, you have to give that to us in a PDF format because that compresses the file. And we get so many, it doesn't overload our system, and we are able to look at everything. We want the PDF, so that means you have to make sure there are no animations or anything in there because those things do not work on a PDF. So sometimes we miss video links and we miss these things. So keep that in mind, that it's got to be a PDF format in order for us to make it easier to review. Now, we are looking for 10 to 12 slides. So you're looking at a title slide. Remember, your title is the title of the proposed session, your name, and then IAM 2015. And then the very last slide is the contact slide. The contact slide, the very last one, is the only place where you can put the logo for every affiliation you may have. That's where people can get a hold of you if they want to connect with you. So that leaves 8 to 10 is the number of the slides for the actual presentation. We want to see progress, maybe a few slides in the beginning and the middle and the end of what your proposal is. We're looking for you to follow the guidelines that we've given you as well. And Nancy will get into exactly more detail about presentation tips on the visuals. What we'd like to do is remind you that you give us a PDF of the proposed presentation, and here's the other option, perhaps you're not comfortable doing presentations that are visual. Maybe your primary audience, you're used to giving full discussion outlines. Give us a full discussion outline. You have to give us either one or the other. And then the other requirement, which is a must, and it's required for it to be complete, is to give us a prior presentation, the full visual or the full discussion outline. This allows us to take a look at what you've done in the past. It allows us to have an idea of what to expect from you. And it allows us the ability to get to know you a little bit better. And by you, the presentation style, the information, how you deliver it, and the visuals. Okay? It's really important that you give this all of these items. Otherwise, your submission is incomplete and it will be removed from the process. It will not even be reviewed. I just want to let you all know that right now. We will not review incomplete submissions. So if you don't give us the 2 proposed presentation and a prior presentation, automatically it'll be removed. And I just want to remind you all, as you're submitting these, the system itself, if you leave a field empty, it won't let you submit it. So keep that in mind as well. Now, as I said earlier, we get about 300 submissions, and I have to tell you, no matter how many times we say this, there are people who do not read the instructions, they do not follow, and they do not give us everything. And I have to say, it's disappointing for us to have to remove incomplete submissions, but you know, we need to be fair, and we're doing this for the association and for the field, so this is a way for us to be fair. Nancy.
Yep. And the reason, and we really want to make sure that this is to give us a sense of your style, so we can really see how your presentations look. Because what we don't want are presentations that look like this. When you look at our speaker guidance, what you'll see we've got some tips in there about how to create a visually appealing presentation. Please don't use a wall of text. We've all sat in sessions where there's been a screen up there that's got so much on it that it's really difficult to read. It's overwhelming with the amount of words. It's not a visually appealing slide. Your slide is cluttered. Your message is going to get lost, and people will spend more time reading your slide than listening to what you have to say. And the slide should be there to complement your presentation, not be everything in your presentation. When you're looking at slides, limit the number of colors, the patterns, the graphics that you've got on one slide. You want to keep things crisp and clean and clear. Again, things can get lost when you've got too much going on. You want to use a font size that's going to be large enough to be seen from the back of the room. So don't use small type. You may be able to read it on the screen when you're putting it together, but keep in mind you're going to be in a room that's bigger than your living room or your desk, and you want people throughout the room to be able to see what you've got on your screen. Simple charts are the easiest to read. Something that's got a lot going on, that's very complicated. Again, very difficult for people to see, and they'll spend more time focusing on a complicated chart or graph than they might listening to what you have to say. And last, if you take a look, you've got colors are fantastic. We all love to use colors to make a point, but really take a look at what those colors look like. There are, in our guidelines, some information on colors that comply with the guidelines for those with low vision. So make sure you take a look at that. You can see at the bottom here, this is really difficult to see. It's difficult to see on a small screen when you're sitting at your desk, and it's going to be even harder to see when you're sitting in a big room. Lastly, avoid using animations in your proposed presentation submission. That stuff's going to definitely get lost. One other thing to keep in mind, if you're going to be using a background, make sure it's washed out enough so that it doesn't get in the way of what you've got on the screen. You want to make sure that everything is crisp and clean and clear so it can be seen from any point in the room. Again, we've got a lot of resources available in the speaker guidance, so you can take a look at these 4 items here. The new death by PowerPoint, how to avoid death by PowerPoint, and there's no need to even explain what that's all about. There's some alternatives to using bullet points and all of those things that make more presentations, shall we say, a little on the dull side. TED Talks has some great information about how to tell a compelling story. And your presentation, your PowerPoint should be a compelling story. It should have a beginning, a middle, and end. When we talk about a compelling story, it's again not stopping in the middle to tell a story, but there should be a story arc to your presentation. You're presenting a problem. You're presenting some information about potential solutions. You're presenting a conclusion. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And another site with some tips for great presentations. All this is geared towards helping you present a presentation that's going to visually complement what you're saying rather than distracting people from what you're talking about. They're coming to hear you share your information, your knowledge, your experience. Don't let the PowerPoint take away from what you have to share. Susana?
Great. So let's take a look at the final screen. So you've completed your abstract, your objectives, your takeaways, these items, the financial support. We provide $500 for the session, for the accepted sessions, note that it's the session, not every speaker. And we also give one speaker in the group. So if it's just one person, it's, obviously you don't have to coordinate. But if there's more than one speaker on a submitted or an accepted session, one speaker gets a complimentary registration, and if you've ticked off this box here for financial support, you can then qualify to come back later and ask us for that up to $500 for that financial support. Again, it doesn't matter if you select financial support or not. That has no bearing on the selection process. However, if you don't tick it in the beginning, you come back to us later, you won't be qualified for it, because obviously we need to plan. Now these other items, giving us permission to live stream you or to record your presentation, the presentation itself will belong to the conference, all of these things. Let's take a look at something really important. If you submit to this, what you're saying is that whatever you submit, your topic as well as your speakers, are selected by eventually approved by the committee. Okay, you're agreeing that the topic that you submit is the topic that you will talk about. And obviously, we've instituted measures so that we help you along the way. But understand that if you don't agree to these things, you can't submit. So be very clear. And if you don't agree with any of these things, unfortunately, you won't be able to submit, because you have to agree to these in order to move forward. Now, one of the things that which you want to take a look at is at the bottom of this is that it tells you, are you part of a panel or will you have a co-speaker? That's so that we can, pay attention to that, so that we flag you to make sure that everything down the road is approved as well. Nancy, next slide.
Right. If I can
Let me
1 second there.
Sure, Julie, go ahead.
I'm sorry, in the previous slide. That bottom part where it says you have a co-presenter or a co-panelist, when you click on that, you have to click either yes or no. And if you click on yes, it'll bring you to a new set of screens that will allow you to enter the information for your co-speaker or your co-panelist. So we'll ask for their biography and their contact information, so that we have that in a file, so we also can upload that on the online program in the app. So it'll allow up to 4 co-speakers or panelists. Typically, our sessions have 1 to 2, unless you are a panel. But those pages, if you click a yes or no, it will then prompt you to another screen to submit that information for those speakers. And at the end, when you're all done, after you stop clicking no, it'll have a submit button that you will then submit it, your presentation. And at that point, after you submit, you will then get an email which will thank you for submitting. And it'll give you information as far as your username and password. And then it will also allow you to go back and edit what you submitted up till the February 20th deadline at 5 p.m. At that point in time, you will no longer be able to edit. So people that may want to put information in the submission and decide that, hey, I want to change it, or I want to update it, or I thought, oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot something to put in there. You can go back in and edit it. It will pull up your screen exactly the way it looks here, and you can edit whatever you want. But again, that deadline is firm of February 20th at 5 p.m. You will no longer be able to go back in and edit anything that you did to your submission. Sorry about that, Nancy. Go ahead.
No, thank you. Thank you for putting that in there.
Yep, that actually answers all the questions. So thank you. And it's important to note that we're going to be looking for the exact same information on your co-speakers as well. So complete information, 500-character bio, intro. So all that same information we'll be looking for as well. So if you start to fill this out and you don't have all your co-presenters' information, you'll have to put NA in those boxes, but you'll have to go back and get that information and put that information in completely. So when you sit down to fill this out, make sure that you've got all the information that you need. Okay.
Okay. Yes. So just a couple of things on when you're putting in the application itself, please don't wait till an hour before the deadline, because the system may be overloaded, it may not go through, and we don't want you to waste your time. So give yourself enough time to do it. Now, there are some things I want you all to understand about when the conference committee is reviewing what we have received. We are very careful. We set up a system that is as fair as possible. You follow the guidelines in order to even get to the review. But we look at your personal knowledge, your experience, and your professional reputation around these things. That's why we ask for the information that we ask for. That's why we call references. That's why we'll check your LinkedIn page. You know, if you give it to us, we'll link it. And you know what? In some cases, we will Google you, or we will call colleagues who we know might know you, and we will ask, is he or she qualified to speak on this? All right? Now, suppose you come to us and you give us a session title, and you know, you build up an entire presentation, and this is what we accept. And then you come to us later and you say, hey, I can't present on that. You know, perhaps it was a sensitive topic and you needed to get permission, and then your boss didn't give you permission in the end, and then you come back to us and say, hey, I'm not allowed to present on this. Now, can I present on something else? We can tell you no. You know, we have the option to say no. We accepted you because you were going to speak on this topic, because that is what fits in with our theme and with the rest of the program. So understand, there's no switching on that. And any speakers that have to be substituted or added, that includes panels, because remember, panels are conditionally accepted. The topic, and then we understand, look, you're putting in a subject, you're putting in a submission, you've got a great idea, you don't have all of your panelists locked in right away. We understand that, okay? We live and work in the same world that you all live in, with the same demands. So we will work with you as much as possible. But all of these speakers and the changes or any panelist additions, all that must be approved in advance by me, because I'm the conference committee chair. You know, we take a look at it, and we are not going to try to be difficult. We are not going to be nitpicking. What we're trying to do is provide the best experience possible. Next slide, Nancy. All right, so let's talk about those of you who are concerned about, you know, developing your presentation, or, hey, I'm new at this, I've never done this before. Remember, you have the option to speak with myself or Nancy or Julie as you're putting your submission together. Hey, how do I say this, or how do I do this? What's the best way? This is what I'd like to talk about. Maybe we can help you drill down into something that might fit a theme better. I don't know. We are open to that conversation. And then we submit, once our deadline is passed, we take a look at everything. Has everybody submitted everything that they're supposed to? Great. The ones who have not are culled from the group. And then the group, the conference committee, reviews we have a set of guidelines also on how we're looking for, and we do a training on what exactly we're looking for and the things that we need to see. We will finally cull this down to all the accepted speakers, and those speakers are notified that they have been accepted, and then they get a speaker representative, conference committee rep, to work with them to develop their presentation. The visuals, maybe work with them as they're developing it, points and, hey, you know what, you're talking about this, make sure you include these, or here's a tip, you're going to say that, but here's something else you should consider. We work with you. We help you bring out the best in the story that you're sharing and make it the most compelling presentation, because that is why we are coming to a conference. That's why our agencies, or some of us fund our own tickets to the conference. This is why we're coming, so that we can hear the information about what's actually happening out there. I want to be very clear. When you submit that first, August 3rd, I believe, is the deadline. It's the first version of your submission or your accepted presentation. We will review that, and we will come back with feedback, and we will come back to you and say, hey, we would like for you to make these format changes, okay? Or hearing the content. Now, content, you know, we understand that this is your area, and this is what you excel at, and this is obviously your expertise. We generally do not mess with content. We understand that. But we will come to you with format. We will come to you and say, hey, we really need you to include this, or, you know, exclude that because, you know, it's only 16 minutes. Be very understanding of the fact that this is a conference for the International Association of Emergency Managers. So when we say that we will reserve the right to review and make suggestions, we are trying to make the best for all of them. So one of the reasons why we encourage handouts is that, as Nancy said, we don't want a wall of text on there. Nobody is coming to this conference to hear, or rather to read the slides. They are coming to hear you and the story and the information and your experience. That's what most people really want to know. How did you handle that situation? Frank Patterson last year did an amazing session on his experience in West Texas. And when I had the conversation with him about developing his session, I said, Frank, people want to know how you as the emergency manager dealt with 12 individuals dying. These are your friends who died, but you had a job to do. You had media scrutiny. You had all these things that were on you. How did you deal with that? And you know what? Frank had a conversation with the attendees about exactly how he dealt with that, because isn't that what we all need to know? So if you have technical information you want to share, or maybe you have, a job aid or a checklist, that's a handout, okay? If you want to refer to it and it's a manual, you can take a picture, a visual of that manual and include that on your slide, but you don't put all the words on the slide. You include that as a handout. If there's something else you want to give that gives more information about a certain part of your topic, that's a handout. All right, so that's all of the support we give you as you develop your presentation. When we get closer to the actual conference, we will assign a speaker liaison to you. He or she will contact you a week or two before the conference, help you get sorted. When you get there, they will work with you on, hey, you know what, I'm going to hold up. We have cards that will say you have 5 minutes left or 10 minutes left. How do you want to do your questions? They're kind of the logistical issues of actually doing a presentation. And they're also experienced conference committee members, so you might have other questions. So you are not alone at any point through this process. Now, here's the thing I'd like everyone to remember. We are not trying to be annoying or controlling. What we like for all of you to understand is that, the committee, like I said earlier, I think I've been on this committee 8 years. Nancy, I think you've been on almost as long as I have. Between myself, Nancy, and the rest of the committee, we have reviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of presentations. We really know what we're looking for. We really have learned over the years how to bring out the best in folks, and how to, whether it's to ask a question or to remind you to add something. So please let us help you. If you are open and accepting of it, let us help you. We've got quite a bit of experience in this, and really all we want is to help bring out the best in our speakers in a fair and equitable manner, and to bring the best content possible to the IAEM conference. Next slide, Nance.
Great, thank you, Susma. All right, so there was a question about where to find the link for the call to speakers. If you go to the IAEM website and you go to the conference page, you will see there'll be information about the conference itself with all the information on the speaker responsibilities, the speaker benefits, speaker resources, information on this webinar today, and you'll see there's a link for the call for speakers. That will get you into the system, correct, Julie?
Yes, that is correct. That link right there on this page, call for speakers, will pull you up to those screenshots that Nancy was showing you in that system that collects all the submissions. So this is on this speaker guidelines page. Also on the main event page, there's also a link there, will remain there also for the call for speakers online submission system. And to answer another question as far as this webinar being recorded, it is going to be recorded. And the link for that, as well as the PowerPoint, will be on that main event page, and also will be on this speaker guidelines page, which is in a link on that event page. There's a link to go to this page for the speaker guidelines page, and all the information will be there also as far as the webinar and the call for speakers.
Great, thank you, Julie. Okay, so we've got a few questions here that we will go through and answer, and hopefully we'll be able to get everybody the answers that they are looking for. There's a question about avoiding selling, promoting a product or a service. Does that mean for-profit products or services? And the example is if you're presenting on a program that is a free, not-for-profit, like the Prepare-a-thon, is that something that would be allowed? Susma, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So let me use an example of something that happened from last year. There was see Mona Curry out of LA. They had a program, and it was, I believe it was called 5 Steps. And she had worked with a consultant to bring that program together and to disseminate it among the county. They presented, but they presented together because it was a specific program that a local entity put together. Now, if it's free and you used it, absolutely. How did it work? How did you modify it? You know, you're not selling anything. The caution here is if you have a consultant with you who helped you put that together, I think he or she has a lot of information to share. So if you're going to talk about exactly how that program was implemented, the things that you learned, the things that people should be aware of when they are trying to implement a similar program, I think that's information that people want to know. And there are a lot of programs out there. There's one from last year called MyPI, and Ryan Akers is the gentleman who put that program together. And he has quite a bit to share. He came from a school, so he wasn't a nonprofit necessarily. So I want you all to think about this, rather than saying, am I going to be selling, or am I going to violate that? If you really have specific questions, the best thing to do is pick up the phone and call one of us and talk us through. Let's hear what your situation is. We can best guide you in that way. Because honestly, there are just so many situations out there. The best way to do that is reach out to us so that we can talk through your specific one.
Great, thank you. There's a question about if the presentation application can be saved partway through and have you come back and finish, or must it be completed in one session? Julie, if I'm getting this right, you have to have a complete application in order for it to be entered into the system. You can go back in and edit it. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but what you may want to do is these screens will be available. You'll be able to take a look at this information on the website. Go through and make sure you know what the information is that you're going to need, and prepare your submission in Word or in Pages or whatever you use, your word processing, so you can make sure you've got the right number of characters, that you've checked the spelling, the grammar, and that you've got the information that you need for all the different sections. For your references, you'll need to make sure you have their contact information. That's going to be phone and email. Julie, did I get that correct?
Yes, you did, Nancy. That's exactly correct. And there's a reason for doing that. I think a lot of times we find people will put it in incomplete submission in and then not go back and edit it. So this kind of prevents that from happening. It allows people to put something in there, get it complete, and you have that time frame to go back in and edit it till February 20th. So just keep that in mind, and that will prompt you, like I said before, when you hit the submit button and you fill in all the fields, it will tell you that you have to February 20th at 5 p.m. to complete it, and it will give you the information to edit it. So it'll prompt you at that point in time, again, remind you that you do have that time period to go back and edit and make any changes or add anything to it that you may have forgotten.
Great, thank you. If you have lots of speaker experience and you have lots of experience working on a topic but you've never presented on it, then please go ahead and submit to present on it. We're not looking for folks to present on things that only on things that they've presented on before. Something that you've got experience in and you want to share, we definitely want to hear that from you. Yes,
Nancy,
you can
add to that, please?
Yes, please.
So, when we were looking at that application, your abstract, your objectives, and your takeaways, if you aren't clear in that, if you cannot write in there exactly what you want the group to know, exactly what it is, what you want them to know, and what you want them to take away from, then it really doesn't matter how much experience you have in doing all these other things, because we didn't walk away understanding it. So keep that in mind. It might be the first time you're presenting on this, but if you haven't filled those basic boxes right there, it won't even get to that place of whether you are going to be presenting. So keep that in mind. Don't worry so much about, this is the first time I'm presenting. Trust yourself that you've done this before, but follow the guidelines on what we're asking. Hey, Nancy, can you, there's a question back there about if you have the background of an organization. Would you answer that? Because I don't think we've talked about that yet.
Sure. Wait, I'm looking for. I want to make sure I get the question right. Is that one that just came in?
Okay. And while you're looking for that, I'm going to address another one. It says, how will a first-time speaker be able to provide a prior presentation? All right. So speaking opportunities come in many ways. What if, as a first-time presenter, you're saying you've never submitted to present at a conference, but maybe you haven't presented at a national conference. Maybe you did something for your office, your agency. Maybe you did something short. It might be short, but that is a speaking opportunity. So think about all the different areas where you have spoken. And if you truly have never done anything else, you know what? I think you can say that. I think you should pick up the phone and call one of us so that we could talk to you about what you're doing and make sure that there wasn't something in there that you haven't done. But everybody has to start somewhere. And we encourage anyone who has something to share to submit. So please don't, even if you don't get accepted in the end, there is practice in doing this. It's like, going on an interview. The more interviews you go on, the more practice you get. When you're doing something for the first time, it doesn't always go so smoothly. So please, we encourage you to submit. We also encourage you to pick up the phone and call one of us if you have a question.
Okay, so the background of your slide, I believe, is what you're asking about. Again, like the logos, I think that we would have to take that on a case-by-case basis. We'd have to see what that background looks like. I know we've had this come up in a couple of times in the past, and it's something that we have to have a discussion on. I know sometimes companies require you to use a specific background. That's something that we would have to discuss with you. And if there's a way for us to not have a company logo on every screen, we would prefer that.
Yes.
There's a question about sending links to any audio and video that may not translate to the PDF. If you've got that information, I think, if it's relevant to the submission, if you're going to be using a video clip in your presentation, you want us to see that. I believe there's a way for you to get that information to us. I don't know if it can come in through the system itself or if it would have to be a separate email. Julie, can you address that?
There is there for the prior presentation to put a video link in.
Great, thank you.
Okay, wait, Nancy, before you move on. So
yeah.
If you wish to include a visual, a link to a video or something in your proposed presentation, what we recommend is, since it's going to be a PDF and we won't be able to take any links out or pick up anything, I would put in there, inserting video here, and then perhaps you could upload a separate sheet of paper with on slide, obviously your name and the proposed title, and then put on slide 5, use this link for video, so that at least we have the link to go and use, okay? That's a way if that's what you would like to include. But remember, that video cannot be your entire presentation. So just a caution there.
Yep. There's a question, is there a preference for part 2, full presentation, discussion outline, or video? I don't have a preference. I think it's what is going to give us the most information. If you are doing a visual presentation, it might be good for us to see a prior full presentation so that we can see what your full presentation style looks like. If you are doing a discussion outline, if you've got a previous discussion outline, so we can see a full previous discussion outline. So I think it needs to match up to what you are doing. So there's no strong preference for part 2 one way or the other. There's a question about a proposed presentation being very close to a prior presentation. I guess the clarification that we would need for that would be, is it an updated version of a prior presentation? Are you submitting a prior presentation that is on the same topic, or is it a presentation that's similar in, I guess I would need a little bit more clarification on that one.
Maybe, Nancy, with those folks, maybe that's a conversation. Pick up the phone and call myself or Nancy. I would also recommend, there are a couple questions in there about first-time presenter, and if you get the submission done earlier, call us. Call one of us or email us and say, hey, we'd like to talk to you about it. And, we'll schedule a time to talk to you, and we'll review this with you.
Yep. Average number of attendees. I don't know if we have an average. Attendees can range anywhere from 10 to 125 in a room. it definitely varies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely varies. I think sometimes that number of attendees varies based on the number of tracks that we've got.
How compelling your story is, the information that you're sharing, and then also timeliness. What's happening in the world? This is where situational awareness is important to all of us. We just really don't know. We cannot predict. And there have been times when, a topic we thought would be enormous was empty, or near, small, low in number versus, another one that we didn't even anticipate being that well attended. So again, I'm going to bring you back to objectives, takeaway, abstract. Be clear, be concise. Tell us exactly what you want to know. Don't have a 15-word title, okay?
Yep. For folks that use a flip chart, I think you can include how you use that flip chart in your discussion outline if you're not using a visual presentation like a PowerPoint or a Prezi or a keynote. That should be part of how include how you use that flip chart in a discussion outline.
And if you have visuals, maybe images that you can PDF and upload as part of that, let us, I would do that as well so that we have the best understanding of exactly how you utilize it.
Yeah. If you're a first-time presenter and you have your submission done earlier than the due date and you want to have a discussion with us, please definitely give us a call. We want to have that conversation. We want to help you put your best foot forward and give you the best opportunity to be accepted. So if you get done before the due date and you want to have a discussion with us, I'm going to put up our contact information in just a moment, so you'll have that information.
I think there was somebody here who said, what is the question? It says, having attended the IAM this November, I'm struggling to remember examples of workshops that included content that was tailored for tactile kinesthetic learners. Can you give examples of how accepted workshops have addressed this learning style? I have to be very honest and say that the majority of workshops that come through, the submissions, they're mostly visual presentations. We've had, I don't know if we've even had 3 or 4 that had discussion the outlines. And then and to be perfectly clear, we are not looking for handed out material, or talked about this. We want a little bit more detail than that. So if you want to be one of the first to get through the process to do that, I say do so. And again, have a conversation with us if you would like more information about that.
Made a presentation 2 years ago on a new program and service that's been dramatically updated and improved and expanded and is now available for a wider audience. Is it okay, sorry, that just blipped off my screen, is it okay to present on the new updated version based on something presented 2 years ago, or should we start completely new and fresh? I think it depends on what is, I guess that might need to be a discussion or how it's presented in the abstract so that we can clearly see what is new and updated about it. If it's just Susan, you want to, I'm struggling for how to get the thought out of my head.
A lot of programs, come out and they come out in one particular manner, or maybe it's how the partners are engaged, or particularly how certain mechanisms are implemented. And you'll notice that as you utilize this or you're executing it in the field, things are different. Things had to be changed, or dramatic changes. For example, if we're going to look at emergency management performance grants and how communities or local emergency managers didn't know how to implement the in-kind match that's available from the voluntary side of the house, maybe you've got changes about that. That is a significant change to the program, especially if you are able to support it with evidence, numbers, with details, with process. Submit it. But again, you're always welcome to have a conversation with us. If you want to do a quick write-up on that and then, email that to me or to Nancy, we're happy to talk you through that. I'm really good at asking questions and helping, first of all, most of the questions I ask are because I'm not understanding. I'm not getting what I would need to see. So again, as Nancy said, have a conversation with us. And Nancy just put up our email address. As we introduced ourselves earlier, I'm the chair of the conference committee and Nancy is the vice chair. And Julie Husk is also, and you've seen her contact information also throughout this It's everywhere. We are here for you. We are here to answer questions. We are not here to knock anybody down or to say, nope, you don't qualify. We want to help you qualify. We want to bring the best out in you. Please let us do so. Ask those questions. You know, don't be afraid to reach out. And my feeling about questions are great. When someone asks you questions about your topic or your presentation or submission or in your process, it's because they're engaged. It's not because, you know, they're not interested in what you have to say. It's because they are engaged. So engage us. Ask us those questions that you want. Challenge us to help you be the best that you can be at your presentation. So remember the deadline is the 20th, 5 p.m. That's February 20th at 5 p.m. Eastern. There will be no exceptions to that rule. And I want to be very clear in this. It doesn't matter what your position is, whether you're at IAM or, you know, you could be, you know, as I like to jokingly say, the president of the world. You have to be able to follow these deadlines because everyone is subject to these. All right? Nancy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
We're coming up on 2 o'clock, but there's a couple of more questions that I just want to see if I can quickly answer. If you did not get approved at first because of others not qualifying, will there be a chance to be picked up? We do identify some alternates, and if you are selected as an alternate, we will let you know, because in the business that we're in, there are often last-minute changes. Yes, we definitely accept individual presentations. I know we've talked a bit about panels and co-presenters. A lot of folks submit as individual presenters. You do not need to submit with a panel. Our focus is not only on operational success versus emerging trends in research. We want to see everything that's out there in the full spectrum. And the ever-growing spectrum of emergency management. So it's not just operational successes. We want to see what you've got, and if it's compelling enough, we want to make sure that it is shared. Conference sub-themes, if you look at the speaker guidance, we do have topic areas. They're kind of broad, phases and mission areas, political and environmental influences, and I am struggling to remember the third one because it's not up on the screen in front of me. So if you take a look in the speaker guidance, you'll see that there are topic areas that sort of tie into practices. Thank you very much, partner practices, that tie into the overall theme. But what we're looking for are things that tie into the overall theme. If you want to speak with a client and they're unable to make it after being accepted, can you present alone? If you're going to have changes in the speakers, you're going to need to get that approved by us, by SUSEMA, before the conference begins.
Hey, Nancy, can I address this one? It sounded like you just said it's okay for nonprofits to pitch their products with their consultants, but a for-profit cannot pitch their product. Okay, so let me be clear about this. When a nonprofit has instituted a program that they have implemented in their community or whatever, but they needed the help of someone to actually execute and far and wide, you know, they're not actually pitching a program for sales. And often, in these cases, they give you all the material so that you can duplicate it. So again, the whole point of pitching a product means that you are trying to gather sales for that product or for your business. You're drumming up business. We are not here we are not in the business of drumming up business for others. What we are here to do is to share best practices, to share the model practices, to get perspectives out there. So if you have something that is working well in your community, whether it was implemented by a private or a nonprofit, or it doesn't matter. If it's something that's working, maybe it's something that the rest of us need to hear. If you're not sure if it sounds like selling or not, pick up the phone and call one of us and let us know a bit more in detail so that we can help you figure that out.
Yes, you can use Prezi, Keynote, PowerPoint, whatever visual presentation software you use. And I think we might have addressed the video clip. If you missed that, just shoot one of us a quick email about how you can share a video clip. We do need that in PDF because that's the easiest way for us to take a look at that through the system. Presentation, your session is 60 minutes long, and that includes time for questions and answers. So when you are creating your presentation, make sure that it doesn't go, that you're leaving yourselves plenty of time for questions and answers. 45 minutes of presentation, 50 minutes of questions and answers. whatever works best for you. If your presentation is strongly visual, how do I best convey my speaker notes in the submission? You want to convey what your presentation's about through your abstract. So you want to make sure that you are conveying, you don't want to convey all your speaker notes to us. What you're trying to convey to us is in the abstract what your session's about. Your presentation should help us get a visual idea of how you are going to flow through that presentation. Susan, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, there's I have to tell you, I think this is where we talk about individual styles. Some of us, we prepare our presentations differently. I have high visual, and I put a lot of my notes in the notes section for people, depending on my audience. So because we ask for a PDF, and we ask for that because of the number of presentations we get. But if you want to give us extra, if you have the time to develop and put notes and attach that, that's entirely up to you, but we are trying to reduce the burden on everyone else. That's why we're only asking for 8 to 12 rather than a complete presentation. So keep that in mind.
And since you're uploading it as a PDF, you can save your presentation as a notes page so we can see the notes. So you can upload it that way.
Let's see. If you have do you allow co-presenters if there is a shared idea? Absolutely. We are not telling you it has to be an individual or it has to be a panel. We're telling you, give us a compelling idea and make sure it's clear in the abstract, objectives, and takeaways. We need to address this background slide. I'm going to be clear about this, and forgive me for being direct. This conference committee has set guidelines about how your visual presentation should look. There are no logos allowed unless it's specifically tied to a program, and that's a case-by-case program basis. If you have to use a template from an organization, and your organization says, well, you have to use this, we always like to remind folks, this is the annual conference of the International Association of Emergency Managers. So therefore, we get to set the template. So that's a conversation we might need to have, perhaps with your organization. Perhaps there's a way we can compromise. That background slide, for example, that has your organization information and logo, that could be on the very last page with your contact information. All right? Is there anything else on this list, Nancy?
Nope, I think we've hit all the questions. Again, our contact information is up on the screen. If you have additional questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to one of us. This presentation will be available on the website. We'll have the PowerPoint up there as well as the recording of this webinar. So if there is nothing else, we'd like to thank you all for joining us on this webinar this afternoon. We hope this was helpful, and we look forward to reviewing all of your submissions.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.